Most people think great conversations come from saying the right things, but the truth is, it's not about what you say, it's about what people feel when they talk to you. Magnetic conversations aren't luck. They're psychology in action. It's the quiet confidence, the curiosity, and the calm that make people lean in, not your words, but your energy. Today, I want to break down the psychology behind why some people instantly connect, while others never seem to get through. Magnetic conversations begin when you stop trying to be interesting and start being interested. It sounds simple, but it's one of the most powerful psychological shifts you can make in communication. Most people walk into a conversation with one subconscious goal: to prove something. To prove they're funny, smart, confident, successful, or important enough to deserve attention. But the irony is, the harder you try to be interesting, the less interesting you become, because the energy of trying is rooted in insecurity. When you're focused on yourself, what to say next, how you sound, whether they like you, your brain isn't present. And presence is the true magnetism people feel drawn to. The human brain is designed to seek connection, not perfection. We crave to be understood far more than we crave to be impressed. That's why when you meet someone who truly listens, really listens, something changes in the air. It's almost like time slows down. You can feel that they're not rushing to talk, not waiting for their turn, but actually interested in your thoughts. That moment creates psychological safety. The brain releases oxytocin, often called the trust chemical. It's the same hormone released when you hug someone or feel emotionally supported. In that moment, you unconsciously associate that person with safety, calmness, and acceptance, and that's what makes them magnetic. Listening, therefore, is not passive. It's an active form of emotional leadership. You guide the energy of the conversation without controlling it. You hold space for the other person's emotions and thoughts, and when someone feels heard, they stop performing and start revealing, and that's when connection becomes real. But here's where most people fail. They confuse hearing with listening. Hearing is what happens with your ears. Listening is what happens with your presence. Anyone can nod and say, "Yeah," while thinking about what to say next. But magnetic people practice deep listening, full attention without distraction or judgment. They pick up on tone, emotion, and body language as much as the words being said. They're tuned into what's not being said, the silence between sentences, the change in breathing, the pause before a confession. Those moments tell you more about a person's truth than their words ever will. A truly magnetic communicator knows how to make someone feel like they are the only person in the room. They do it through micro gestures, maintaining soft eye contact, nodding slowly, mirroring body language, leaning slightly forward to show engagement. These subtle cues activate the mirror neurons in the listener's brain, creating a sense of synchrony. It's a biological sign of empathy. That's why you naturally start to like people who mirror your energy. Your mind perceives them as safe, familiar, and aligned with you. And then comes the power of curiosity. Genuine curiosity is like oxygen for a good conversation. When you ask thoughtful, open-ended questions, you're telling the other person, "I value your perspective." Instead of asking, "Do you like your job?" a closed question, try, "What do you enjoy most about your work?" That single shift invites depth. It opens a door for storytelling, emotion, and meaning. And when people tell stories, they reveal who they are. Every time you help someone seen, you become unforgettable to them, not because of your words, but because of how you made them feel about their own. And here's the subtle secret. The most magnetic people don't interrupt silence. They let pauses breathe. They don't rush to fill gaps because they understand silence is where connection matures. When someone pauses, they're processing, and your patience tells them you're safe to open up more. That's when real conversations happen, not the surface-level exchanges that die after small talk. The psychology behind this is rooted in emotional validation. When you validate someone, when you acknowledge their emotions without trying to fix them, their defensive brain relaxes. For example, if someone says, "I've been really stressed lately," most people reply with advice, "You should take a break," or "Don't worry, it'll be fine." But a magnetic communicator says, "That sounds really heavy. What's been the hardest part about it?" That response doesn't solve the problem, it acknowledges it, and acknowledgement is what people crave more than solutions. It gives them space to breathe. Being interested doesn't mean losing your identity or becoming a therapist in every conversation. It means leading with curiosity instead of ego. You ask questions not to control the direction, but to explore it together. You listen not to respond, but to understand. And when you finally do speak, your words carry weight because they come from a place of presence. The reason this approach works so powerfully lies in how humans are wired. In every interaction, the subconscious question running in people's minds is, do I feel safe with this person? And safety doesn't come from charm, intelligence, or success. It comes from emotional consistency. When someone listens to you without judgment, when they don't compete, correct, or one-up you, your brain recognizes them as emotionally safe. That's why magnetic people often have a calming aura. They're not trying to prove anything, they're just there. And that calm energy doesn't come from technique, it comes from confidence. The kind of confidence that doesn't need to dominate a conversation to feel valuable. When you're genuinely confident, you don't chase validation, you create connection. You know your worth, so you don't need to perform to earn attention. That's why being interested in others doesn't make you smaller, it makes you stronger. Because only the secure can truly listen. In a world where everyone's trying to talk louder, magnetic people win by listening deeper. When others rush to speak, they slow down. When others compete to be seen, they help others feel seen. When others chase validation, they give value. That's the quiet power of presence. It's not dramatic or flashy, but it's unforgettable. Because long after people forget your words, they'll remember your calm, your curiosity, and how they felt when they were around you. So if you want to master the psychology behind magnetic conversations, start here. Shift your focus from impressing to understanding. Make people feel that when they talk to you, they matter. Don't underestimate the power of simply paying attention. In a distracted world, that's rare. And what's rare is magnetic. The second layer of a magnetic conversation is emotional regulation. The ability to stay calm, grounded, and composed no matter what kind of energy enters the room. This is where real psychological power lies, because people don't just hear your words, they feel your state. Every human being carries an emotional frequency, and whether you realize it or not, that energy speaks louder than your voice ever will. You've probably felt it before. Someone walks into a room and instantly the air changes. They haven't said a word, but you can sense tension or peace, anxiety or confidence. That's emotional communication. And it happens long before words begin. People who master emotional regulation hold that invisible power. They control the tone of every interaction, not through dominance, but through stillness. They don't allow external chaos to disturb their internal calm. And that calm becomes magnetic because it represents safety. The truth is, the human brain is constantly scanning for safety in social interactions. It's a primitive survival mechanism called neuroception, where your nervous system decides if someone is a threat or a refuge. When your energy is calm and centered, people subconsciously relax around you. Their body mirrors your steadiness, their defense is lower, and that's when authentic conversation begins, when safety is established. But the challenge is, most people communicate from reaction, not regulation. When someone interrupts them, they get defensive. When someone disagrees, they raise their tone. When someone ignores them, they take it personally. All of this is emotional reactivity, an untrained mind letting external behavior dictate internal state. And when your emotions are reactive, you lose control of the conversation's direction. Because whoever controls their emotions controls the energy. Emotional regulation starts with awareness, noticing your triggers instead of being ruled by them. Before you respond, ask yourself, what am I feeling right now and why? That small pause creates space between stimulus and reaction. It's in that pause that power lies. Magnetic people use that space to choose composure over chaos. They don't suppress emotions, they manage them. They allow themselves to feel irritation, disappointment, or frustration, but they don't let those feelings drive their behavior because they understand that composure is not weakness, it's emotional intelligence in motion. When you stay calm in a conversation, especially when the other person is heated, something psychological happens, the mirror effect. The human brain has mirror neurons which naturally reflect the emotional state of others. That's why if someone smiles at you, you tend to smile back. If they're angry, your body tenses. But when you maintain composure amid someone's chaos, you disrupt that automatic pattern. Your calm becomes contagious. Their brain starts to sync with yours. Their tone softens, their shoulders relax, and the emotional intensity drops. You've shifted the environment without saying a word. And that's real influence. This kind of control is especially powerful in conflict. In emotionally charged moments, most people listen to defend, not to understand. They want to win, not connect. But magnetic communicators focus on emotional direction, not emotional reaction. They don't match the other person's energy, they set the tone. For example, if someone raises their voice, they don't respond with equal force. They lower theirs. Psychologically, this disarms aggression because it signals certainty. When your tone is steady, it communicates confidence and control, while yelling communicates insecurity and fear. The one who stays calm becomes the leader of the emotional space. Emotional regulation also means staying neutral when people try to provoke you. You'll meet individuals who test your patience, challenge your boundaries, or project their insecurities onto you. The reactive person gets hooked. They take the bait and lose composure. The regulated person sees through it. They understand that projection isn't personal. It's the other person's inner turmoil spilling outward. Instead of matching that energy, they observe it like a wave, noticing it rise and fall without letting it drown them. That's the psychological discipline of self-command. You don't silence your emotions, you govern them. And this discipline makes conversations magnetic because it creates emotional predictability. People trust those who are emotionally consistent. Think about it. If someone's mood changes every few minutes, you feel anxious around them. You can't relax because you're unsure what version of them will show up next. But someone who stays steady, calm, and emotionally grounded gives off reliability. They become a source of comfort in unpredictable environments. That's why people are drawn to them. They radiate peace in a world full of noise. Another key part of emotional regulation is detachment from outcome. Magnetic communicators don't cling to how a conversation should go. They don't try to force agreement or approval. They simply show up as themselves, grounded, curious, and calm, and let things unfold naturally. This detachment keeps their energy light and their presence open. People feel it when you're not trying to convince them or impress them. It frees them to express themselves honestly. That's how real understanding happens. When no one is performing, everyone is connecting. Emotional regulation also involves managing internal self-talk during interaction. When you feel tension rising, your mind might whisper, "They're judging you," or "You're losing control." In those moments, you must replace fear-based thoughts with grounding truths. Remind yourself, "I'm calm, I'm safe, I can handle this." It sounds simple, but it's powerful. Your thoughts shape your state, and your state shapes your communication. When your inner voice is stable, your outer voice naturally follows. And here's something subtle yet profound. Calmness doesn't mean silence. Emotional regulation isn't about withdrawing or appearing emotionless. It's about emotional direction. You can still express passion, assertiveness, or disagreement, but you do it with control. You decide when to raise your tone, not your emotions. Your words are intentional, not impulsive. That's what makes your communication powerful. It's deliberate, not reactive. There's also a physiological side to this. Your breathing directly affects your emotional state. Shallow breaths signal stress to the brain, while deep, steady breathing tells your body you're safe. Before entering an important conversation, take slow, deep breaths to regulate your nervous system. This simple act lowers cortisol levels and increases mental clarity. The calmer your body, the sharper your mind, and the more magnetic your presence. Emotionally intelligent people understand that calmness is not just a skill, it's a strategy. It's the foundation of influence. You can't lead energy you don't control. Whether it's a negotiation, a disagreement, or a deep personal talk, the person who stays emotionally grounded shapes the emotional weather. Everyone else adjusts to them. So the psychology behind magnetic conversations isn't about saying the perfect thing. It's about mastering the space between what's said and what's felt. When you bring peace into a conversation, you automatically become the anchor in chaos. People may not know why they feel so comfortable with you, they just do. Because your energy tells them you're safe here, and safety, not charm, is what truly draws people in. The third layer of magnetic conversation is authenticity, the courage to be real, not perfect. It sounds simple, but in a world obsessed with appearance, it's one of the hardest things to practice. We live in an age where people carefully filter their words, faces, and emotions to appear flawless. But perfection is not connection, it's performance. And performances, no matter how polished, never create real bonds. What attracts people on a psychological level isn't how perfect you seem, it's how honest you are. Authenticity is the invisible truth your energy carries. When you speak with authenticity, you're not trying to manage people's perceptions of you, you're simply expressing what's real. That kind of honesty creates emotional resonance, a deep subconscious signal that says, this person is safe, this person is real. Because authenticity removes pressure, it allows others to drop their own mask and relax into who they truly are. Think about it. When you meet someone who's genuinely themselves, who doesn't try to impress or hide flaws, you instantly feel lighter. You can breathe around them. You don't have to perform because their presence gives you permission to be yourself too. That's the psychology behind magnetic authenticity. It's contagious. Realness attracts realness. When you stand in truth, you unconsciously invite others to do the same. But why is being authentic so rare? Because most people fear rejection more than they desire connection. We think if we reveal our true thoughts or feelings, people will judge us, pull away, or think less of us. So we wear emotional armor. We say what's safe. We smile when we're uncomfortable. We agree when we disagree. We laugh when we're not amused. Every time we do, we lose a piece of our presence because fake connection is draining. It costs energy to maintain. Authenticity, on the other hand, gives energy. It feels effortless because it's natural. True authenticity doesn't mean oversharing or unloading every detail of your life. It's not about exposing everything. It's about aligning everything. Your words, your tone, and your emotions. When what you say matches what you feel, people can sense your truth. When it doesn't, they can sense the mismatch. The human brain is wired to detect inauthenticity. It picks up subtle cues, inconsistent tone, forced laughter, uneasy eye contact, and instantly flags them as unsafe. That's why fake charm doesn't last. It might capture attention, but it never earns trust. Psychologically, we are drawn to congruence when a person's behavior matches their emotion. You can say all the right things, but if your energy doesn't align, people will feel the dissonance. Authenticity creates congruence. When you're genuine, your nervous system is relaxed, your body language opens up, your tone softens. People feel the peace that comes from that alignment. And that peace becomes magnetic because everyone is unconsciously seeking that level of honesty in a world full of masks. Magnetic communicators understand this. They don't chase likability, they embody truth. They know that not everyone will agree with them, and that's okay. Because the goal isn't universal approval, it's genuine connection with the right people. When you try to please everyone, you dilute your presence. You start bending your truth to fit others' comfort, and slowly, your voice loses its strength. But when you speak authentically, you may not please everyone, yet you'll connect deeply with those who matter. That depth is where real influence lies. Another layer of authenticity is vulnerability, not weakness, but openness. Vulnerability is the bridge that connects hearts faster than any clever words can. It's saying, "This is me. I'm not perfect, but I'm honest." Psychology shows that vulnerability lowers defenses because it signals trust. When you open up, you're telling someone, "I believe this space is safe enough to be real." And that belief invites them to meet you on the same level. That's why the most magnetic conversations often happen when we drop the performance and simply share what's true, the things we're learning, struggling with, or grateful for. But authenticity also requires boundaries. Being authentic doesn't mean giving access to everyone. It means being truthful without losing self-respect. You can be honest and kind. You can be open without being exposed. The difference lies in intention. Authentic people share to connect, not to impress. They express their truth calmly without demanding validation. Their strength comes from self-acceptance, the quiet understanding that I'm enough even if not everyone agrees. And that's what makes them so magnetic. Because confidence wrapped in humility is irresistible. When you no longer need approval to feel valuable, your presence becomes peaceful. You stop chasing people's attention and start attracting their respect. People can feel when you're comfortable in your own skin. That comfort tells their subconscious, "I can trust this person." And trust is the foundation of every deep conversation. There's another psychological factor behind this: coherence. When your internal world sees your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs aligns with your external expressions, your words, tone, and behavior, you project emotional coherence. The human heart literally emits a measurable electromagnetic field that changes based on emotional state. When you're authentic, calm, grounded, congruent, your heart rhythm becomes more harmonious and others can feel it. That's why authentic people have such a grounding effect. They're internally aligned. The opposite of authenticity is manipulation. Manipulation uses words to get an outcome. Authenticity uses words to express truth. The manipulator speaks from fear, fear of rejection, fear of losing control, fear of being unseen. The authentic person speaks from alignment, knowing that their value doesn't depend on approval. That's why their words carry more power. People trust authenticity even when they disagree with it because truth resonates deeper than persuasion. To live and speak authentically, you must be okay with silence, disapproval, and misunderstanding. Because being real means some people won't like you, but that's the cost of being genuine, and it's a small price for peace. When you stop performing, you stop living in constant anxiety about people's opinions. Your focus shifts from "do they like me" to "am I being true?" That's the most liberating mindset you can carry into any conversation. And here's the paradox: the moment you stop trying to be magnetic is the moment you become magnetic. Because authenticity can't be faked or forced. It's a state of alignment, not a strategy. When you speak from truth, calmly, honestly, without pretense, people don't just hear you, they feel you. They may forget your words, but they will never forget how your presence made them feel safe, seen, and free to be themselves. So the psychology behind magnetic conversations ends here. Be interested, not impressive. Be calm, not reactive. Be real, not perfect. Authenticity is the ultimate magnet. It doesn't demand attention. It attracts it because in a world full of noise, the most powerful voice is the one that speaks truth quietly and confidently. At the end of the day, magnetic conversations aren't about mastering tricks or memorizing clever lines. They're about mastering yourself. When you bring genuine curiosity, emotional calm, and authenticity into every interaction, people feel it. They sense the safety, the depth, the peace in your energy, and that's what draws them closer. The psychology behind connection is simple but profound. People don't remember your words, they remember your presence. So don't chase being impressive, chase being real. Because when your attention is sincere, your emotions are steady, and your truth is unfiltered, you won't have to force connection, you'll become it.